My name is Scher, and welcome to my pivoting tutorial, or a key element of power tutorial. The pivot is when you take your standing foot while in a kick and rotate it either 180 or 90 degrees so that your whole body rotates into the kick as opposed to just your kicking tool striking your target. The pivot is very important because if you try to throw a round kick or a side kick or a hook kick or a back kick without the pivot, your body will remain full facing towards your target. So when you throw the kick, then you're presenting a larger target. So if the kick is blocked, your opponent can hit you much more easily. The pivot is designed to swing your body around in an arcing motion, pushing your entire mass into the kick, as opposed to just striking with the leg. Power, as I've talked about in previous tutorials, is composed of two elements: mass, or weight, and velocity, or speed. If you have your leg traveling quickly into a target, that's powerful. But if you have your leg and your entire body traveling quickly into a target, the mass behind the kick, and therefore the power behind the kick, will be much greater. The pivot should always take place on the ball of the foot. The ball of the foot should swivel on the ground. That way, the length of your foot will push your body forward that distance and increase the power of your strike, because speed is distance divided by time. So the distance in which your foot is pushed forward increases the overall distance that you're traveling in the same amount of time. Therefore, your kick will be a lot more powerful than if you rotated on your heel. If you rotate on your heel for the pivot, then your body will actually be moving away from your kick. And though it'll be a little bit more powerful than if you didn't pivot at all, it will be significantly less powerful than if you pivoted on the ball of your foot. When practicing any kick, you don't have to pivot. You can practice a 45-degree round kick with barely any pivot at all. You can pivot halfway and stick your butt out behind you. You can do any of these kicks, and they all have their uses. They're all useful in various situations. However, when practicing to get the kick down, I find it most beneficial to practice first and foremost the full range of motion version of the kick, with full pivot, full hip rotation, full chamber. My idea behind this is that if you practice the full technique, the greatest range of motion possible, the most power possible, then you'll always be able to do all of the elements of the kick. If you want to do less, that's easy. You can just do less. Whereas if you practice less, it's very difficult to do more. You can always do less. You can never get more without working much harder to get that more. When you throw a side kick or a round kick, a big problem a lot of people deal with is rebound force. If you kick a pad or a person and they don't move back or break fully, then some of the force of your strike is going to push back at you. If you pivot, your foot will be pointing in the opposite direction from your side kick. So your foot will be able to deal with a good portion of that rebound force, and the angle of your knee will be able to deal with it effectively, as well as the angle with your hip. If you're not pivot all the way, there's a good chance you're going to roll over the side of your leg and fall backwards, fall down, or twist your ankle. How do you measure a full pivot? Try this. Put a line down on the floor. Stand on the line with your big toe pointing in the direction the line is going, so the inside line of your foot is going straight along the line. Now, stand on one foot and swivel your foot on the ball of the foot so that the heel rests also on the line. That is a full pivot. So when you throw a kick with the opposite leg, the standing foot should rotate 180 degrees, just like that, from big toe in line with the heel. One great way to increase the range of motion of your pivot, to make it full and dynamic at the same time, is a drill where you place a headgear or a ball on the ground about 4 inches in front of your big toe. Place the other leg behind you in a front stance or a walking stance. Pick your back leg up and pivot in the direction the headgear is from your body. At the same time, swing your standing heel 180 degrees around and try to hit the headgear and make it go as far as you can. This dynamic arcing motion of the standing foot is the pivot. If you look at your foot, it's not rectangular. The foot is actually more triangular shaped. The heel is narrower than the toes. So when I say pivot, would you pivot on the pinky line or the outside line of the foot, or the big toe line, the inside line of the foot? When you measure your stances, you use different gauges, the inside, outside, or center line of your foot, to measure different stances. For the pivot, you want to use the big toe line or the inside line of your foot. Pivots are always measured by that line. Another great drill I find that helps me engage my full pivot and get used to that full range of motion without losing my balance or falling over is to hold onto a bar, pick up my kicking leg, and pivot the other leg 180 degrees, and then go back without putting my leg down. I go back and forth holding onto the bar or the back of a chair, the back of a couch, until I've got this motion down. Then I put less and less reliance on the bar, and then I step away from the bar, and I stand on one leg, and then I pivot my standing foot and unpivot it. Pivot, unpivot, pivot, unpivot. And I do this over and over again until I'm really comfortable with that rotation of the foot and rotation of the body, and balancing as I do it. Try using a speed paddle or a focus paddle. Make a front stance and do a turning round kick or a rear leg round kick at the paddle. Try this with a pivot and without a pivot. You'll find if you pivot, then your whole body moves further and moves towards the pad further, so you can generate more speed and more power. Another great tool I've developed to help you work on that pivot and get it aligned and balanced is a balance beam. Basically, I took a 4x4 piece of wood, I wrapped it in cloth to avoid splinters, and I put some legs on either side to keep it from tilting from side to side and rolling over on people's ankles. So you stand on the balance beam, and you pivot on the ball of your foot and swing your heel around to be in line on the balance beam. If your foot rolls from one side to the other, or you don't pivot all the way, you're going to fall off the balance beam because your foot won't be centered on it. Another great drill to really work your pivot is chamber your leg and extend it, either in a side kick or a round kick. Pivot your foot all the way, and then unpivot. See what happens to your hips and the alignment of your body. Then pivot again without lowering your leg or moving your leg at all, and then unpivot and go back and forth and see how the dynamics and angles of your body change. You can do this holding onto a bar or the back of a chair or a couch, or you can do it in the center of the room, depending on how comfortable and well balanced you already are. Now, I'm talking a lot about the pivot, but keep in mind the pivot in and of itself isn't important. I mean, it's important to have that foot there to help absorb rebound force, but the purpose of the pivot is to turn your hips over and rotate your body to align your bones and muscles for maximum effect during your kicks. If you don't pivot, your butt will stick out backwards a little bit. Your hip won't rotate all the way. A good portion of your mass will stay away, be left behind when you throw the kick. The pivot serves to rotate your leg, to rotate your hip, to rotate your back and shoulders and body into the kick, to engage your whole body, to isolate your gluteus and your hamstring muscles in your side kick, as opposed to your quadriceps and abdominal muscles, because it's not a front kick or round kick, it's a side kick. The pivot is a great gauge to make sure that you're getting your entire body into the kick. Sometimes if you have a student who's ridiculously flexible in their hips, they're going to be able to do the kick without the pivot and get their body behind it, but their bones won't be aligned for maximum effect in the kick. So these students, you have to work a little bit harder to get them to engage the hip and the body at the same time. A big problem I run into is people who complain about knee problems or hip problems or discomfort when I tell them to pivot all the way. The reason that they're feeling a discomfort in their knee or hip is because they're fighting the pivot. When you pivot your foot, don't try to leave your body behind. That's like twisting your body like a towel. The purpose of the pivot is to turn your body. So let your body go with the motion of the pivot. Don't resist it. And then all those pains in your knees and hips will disappear and your body will align correctly for the kick. Thank you very much for watching my Engaging Your Body in Your Kicks tutorial, or my Pivot tutorial. Please don't forget to share, comment, like, and subscribe. And please check out the other videos on my YouTube channel.